on there. It's really incredibly rough, and the American economy. This kind of adds to the fact the American economy has been on edge for a lot of really past 2 years or so of Trump's presidency, with the increasing threat of the trade war and all that stuff. But again, you know how I feel about that trade war. And again, this is something that, I mean, a lot of people, maybe even on CNBC, are going to be tutting and worrying about, how does this affect my portfolio, and what does this do to my auto stocks here, that GM may be going on strike? But the fact is, it is so much bigger, and I think really so much more important than that, because of the fact that there is serious issues with the way that I think labor is structured for the past, for I don't know how long, but union membership has been going down. I think it's like less than 15% of Americans now are union households, which really sucks. And even when there is unions, they're really not very strong. Their leaders are not very aggressive. They're corrupt in some ways. They're owned by people who are they're run by people who should not be running. They're run by people in management. But again, it is so good to really see this happen, and it's so good to see that they're taking a tougher tact on this. Again, a shutdown could disrupt local economies and factory towns, but again, of course, the risk is obviously worth it if there is better pay and there's better improvement in conditions for these workers here. That will help, in my opinion, at least, the economy in Michigan and Ohio more than anything else. Of course, President Trump has promised to increase manufacturing jobs there. He has done, I think, a little bit of that by pulling out of NAFTA and TPP for an extent of time, I think. That was one of the few areas that I can recall, at least on top of my head now, that I agree with President Trump on. So there's that. But again, what do you think he's going to say about this strike? We can only wait till he hears about it in Fox and Friends tomorrow morning. But any impact on the broader economy will depend, obviously, on the strike's length. So, yeah, the number of people last year who participated in work stoppages involving more than 1,000 workers rose to its highest level since the 1980s, buoyed by teacher walkouts and a multi-city hotel workers strike. This is again from the New York Times. They're showing some pretty encouraging signs. If you remember, West Virginia, Oklahoma, I think both had some pretty serious strikes. Las Vegas, Los Angeles, one of those two were also mulling strikes there as well. So, labor, especially, I think, with the election of Donald Trump, the rise of Bernie Sanders and the resurgence of a populist left movement that we've seen in this country, that has really been a boost, a kind of shot in the arm to the labor movement, and I'm very, very, very encouraged about what I see there with that, because polling data shows that people have become increasingly supportive of organized labor. A Gallup poll in late August found that 64% of Americans approve of unions, up from below 50% actually a decade ago, and that number really should be higher. Some people, especially on the left, have been critical of the movement and the ability to capitalize on the trends of labor and UAW's failures in particular. It lost a vote at a Volkswagen plant in Tennessee about concerning a strike, which many critics on the left attributed to an uninspired approach to organizing. Again, that's from the New York Times there. But again, I think it's definitely kind of a sign of a larger problem, and it's going to take a long time. I really think it's going to be a long time to change and really restructure these unions into a better and more equitable situation. I think people are going to need to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more, really a lot more pushy, and because there's so much work that needs to be done, and what matters now is getting the right people really at the top, because I think the majority of workers really know what's going on, but the right people at the top to lead it will be absolutely crucial in this fight. Yeah, it really, really is encouraging to see the rising tide of I think organized labor. I think that's something we can really tend to look forward to, because there is a real movement for organized labor within this country. It is a big deal. So, yeah, I'm kind of looking what's going on. Just quick reminder of the debates, and what's going on with that. So it's really what it's going to be is, I didn't think it was that much. What really surprised me is we talked a little bit about this in the wake up. So, I mean, if you're only a Newsflash listener, again, another reminder to wake up, because we obviously have great other programs on this podcast that we have for you. There's tons of different things like debate recaps that we did. Pretty much Kamala Harris, I'm surprised really at how bad she did. I thought she would have a little bit more better of a presentation to put forth, but Joe Biden, not surprised at all. My mom, who I was watching the debate with, literally had to come running out of the room, or not running out of the room, but she then I quote, "I had to get a glass of wine." That's what she said when Joe Biden started just ranting and raving about, quote, giving black kids record players so they can understand words. It is quite incredible to see that, how badly that has really heated up, and how badly that has, how badly pretty much he's going absolutely off the rails when it comes to something like that. Politico, they've been really on one lately. They've been doing some good stuff. For example, they posted an incredible story about this family of televangelists. I guess you could say, not really television. I don't know if they have a TV show, but they're big time Christian conservative leaders, the Falwells. About how crazy and corrupt they are, and the university they run, Liberty University, is just going in the tank. So check that out on Politico. That's definitely worth a read. And Chapo Trap House does a great dig down on it. But they also just posted a pretty anti-Semitic cartoon of Bernie Sanders. The many moods of Bernie Sanders: impassioned, exasperated, cranky, testy, miffed, outraged. And pretty much the whole thing is him with the exact same facial expression. So it's really chill. So yeah, but the cool thing is Bernie, because everyone's being mad at Bernie because he yells. Like, all the establishment people are like, "Bernie's scaring my children. I had to put them in another room because he's yelling so much." Like, that's essentially what one woman said after the debate, the 2 debates ago. I think was what someone almost verbatim said on Twitter. But the point is, Bernie, like the hashtag Bernie yells from us, that was really cool to see, because it really represents, I think, the anger that a lot of people have around this country. Like, it is, not everyone has it. People are obviously living very comfortably, but the fact is a lot of people are not. And that change is really what is interesting. I think really Bernie Sanders is the only candidate who really encapsulates that anger. And that's what I think makes him so successful. Pete Buttigieg attacking Bernie and Warren on State of the Union as well. He says that his, quote, "My concern about the vision of Sanders-Warren approach is that it polarizes Americans. It can polarize Americans when we have other ways to deliver bold solutions without dividing the American people any further." That's kind of ridiculous. The fact that solutions are bold, they're going to polarize people. And sometimes you just got to do that in order to be able to actually get something done, possibly. So, yeah, and the fact is he's also imperially wrong. Most of Bernie Sanders' agenda polls very well. Raising taxes on the wealthy, 73% of support, 66% want raising taxes on big corporations, 55% say they want single-payer health care, and 59% say free college. They're in favor of that. That's according to a Morning Consult Vox poll, so that's another big thing that's going on. And that's, of course, Pete Buttigieg. I mean, it's a little ridiculous. But, again, I just do not see him encapsulating that anger at all. Absolutely at all. Because he's not that guy. You just tell by look at his donor list. Like, it's all big money donors, the big money fundraisers, what he's having. And I think more people should call him out on that. And it was kind of interesting. I thought Bernie and Warren at least would go there. The idea of getting money out of politics. That's a huge issue that I think, I mean, we know everyone supports it, but really getting money out of politics is the biggest issue I think that really we are ever going to see. So it really is the issue that affects all other issues, because we can't do anything unless that continues to happen. Didn't mean to press that. I'm sorry. Just pressing random sound bites here. That's great stuff. Great stuff. So anyway, we are that's pretty much kind of what's going on with our small stories, quote unquote, for the day. But what's really interesting is going on is Donald Trump and his whole thing with Saudi Arabia, because recently, and probably one of my favorite feel-good stories that I have ever seen as of recent, it's a story where it's really nice to see some good things happen in the world. And when I talked about good news at the top of the show, this, I think, qualifies, because just this past weekend, I believe Saturday, Friday, that time period, some bombs dropped on Saudi Arabia's oil. So there's a plant in Abaik, Saudi Arabia, on Saturday. So that's kind of what happened. And the bombs were from Houthi rebels that are tied to Iran. So that was pretty fun. So he started off his tweet storm by saying, based on the the attack on Saudi Arabia, which may have an impact on oil prices. This is the first biggest thing. I have authorized the release of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve if needed in a to-be-determined amount sufficient to keep the markets well supplied. I have also informed all appropriate agencies that to expedite approvals of oil pipelines currently in permitting processes in Texas and other various other states. So yeah, like that is really the kind of incredible thing. Because again, I guess it's all right to keep the markets well supplied, but again, using this to speed up that pipeline process, get more money to the oil companies as quickly as possible. That's a nice little touch there too that he threw in this kind of soup that he is building. He also goes on to say the Saudi Arabia oil supply was attacked. There is reason to believe that we know the culprit, Iran, is what he's saying, are locked and loaded depending on verification, but are waiting to hear from the kingdom as to who they believe was the cause of this attack and under what terms we would proceed. He also goes on to say, plenty of oil. That's a little random there. But then he also rated on our other story with the General Motors and United Auto Workers, get together and make a deal. Like, it's that simple. Like, he's made so many great deals. He's done deals. So, I mean, again, what have we expected here? Like, honestly, like what were we going to expect to have happen? But again, he just knows deals so much better than everybody else. It's such a big problem that he is so willing to solve, and he's just going to do it great. But again, it's the best part of it. But it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens, because there really could be some sort of military strike. Because the most ironic thing in the world that's like only could happen under an administration that has Donald Trump at its head is that the chief warmonger the administration gets fired, but somehow we are this close, even more closer than going closer than ever to going to war with Iran, because we have now that kind of smallest fig leaf of an excuse to do some sort of military strike that attacks and provokes Iran to do something else. And back really when the Iran hysteria was really in the news, I try to remind everybody that we have been incredibly tough. Our sanctions have been devastating. We've been stopping food and medicine from entering the country, which was challenged in the United Nations Human Rights Court and was ruled. The ruling went against us, and then we left the court and threw a big fit over it, which is kind of insane. But still, that is definitely a situation not only worth watching because it's kind of funny that such a ragtag group were able to blow up two of Saudi Arabia's oil fields, and of course Iran somehow is somehow able to just beat everybody else, which is kind of funny. And again, the fact that, I mean, I wouldn't be too sure about what happens when America goes into Iran. If America goes into Iran, God forbid. Hopefully they don't, but who knows what could happen. But the thing is, I think it's really a story that could get out of control very, very fast, and definitely something to watch based on what we see happening here. But I mean, I kind of pray. I did get a little bit of kick when I read that story yesterday about how interesting and kind of frankly amusing it was to see such an awful country led by such an awful leader just get absolutely owned by Houthi rebels in this genocidal, awful